streets. Send them up to the Mass Pike and around.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Yarmouth Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, January 4th, 2023. This is to formally advise that as required by General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the Yarmouth Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting at the date and time noted above. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. We are going to take things slightly out of order here tonight. Our first order of business will be an emergency certification as Bill Benetti, Town of Yarmouth, for Beechwood Road, beach nourishment from dredge spoils to remedy public safety hazard below stairs.
Good evening, everybody. And thank you for taking me out of order. I actually have to catch a flight, so I appreciate it. So yeah, as a result, and yeah, as you can see in that picture, this washout at the bottom of the concrete stairs at the end of the townway at Beechwood Road was a result of that southeast storm that we had with significant storm surge. So the town had received an email via the request tracker system stating it's a public safety issue. We went down and took a look, and it clearly was. However, when you're coming down the stairs, you couldn't tell how significant that washout was, making it even more of a public safety issue. Just the perception from coming down the stairs, you didn't realize what you'd be stepping onto. So I had mentioned to Brittany that as we were already doing the dredging / beach nourishment project where dredge spoils from Parker's River were being placed on Thatcher Town Beach under an existing order of conditions and under our Army Corps dredge permit as well, that, you know, we could take some of that sand. That sand was already analyzed in accordance with our sediment analysis plan that's on file with the Army Corps. So it was all deemed suitable for beach nourishment, and that we could certainly place some of that sand under the stairs to stabilize the stairs and just address that issue only, the public safety issue and the stabilization of the stairs. I mean, the beach certainly could use nourishment. The grade is going the wrong way. But that is, you know, for another time. And I believe I included pictures after we had DPW transport approximately 15 yards of sand from the project at Thatcher Beach. They just traveled over the flat beach below the seawall that were never near any vegetation or anything. And I specifically asked them to just place sand under the stairs, that we're not doing anything with, you know, trying to grade the beach or anything. It was just specifically to address the public safety issue. So that about sums it up.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Questions to the commission? Brittany, any comments? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the?
I guess,
Yeah.
what is the long-term, this is, you used the word stabilization. I don't understand how that really stabilizes the stairs. It's great for safety and everything else in the short-term runoff, but I don't understand what you're going to do in the long run to really.
Right. Well, you know, certainly public safety was paramount. I felt that, yeah, that the structurally the stairs could degrade even more, you know, without having the sediment underneath them. But in the long run, yeah, I think we need to look at nourishing all of the beaches in that area because of climate change, sea level rise, and the fact that we have seen so much erosion there.
So you wouldn't extend those stairs at some point so they have a better base?
Well, yeah, I mean, that could be an option too. We could certainly form it out and extend the stairs.
I'd be putting sand back there a lot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, nourishment is, as we know, a temporary solution, and that's why through a lot of the grants and that we're looking into and pursuing, and some that we've received, that, you know, we've done studies for coastal resiliency and are looking at ways to become more resilient, not with, you know, with green alternatives, but not green in the sense of beach nourishment, because that's temporary, we know that. But yeah, certainly we could form it out, extend the stairs, but I think in that whole area, that if we continue to see the erosion that we're gonna see, the seawall is gonna be undermined, and so I think long-term, we need to be thinking about, about all of that. And honestly, with our dredging projects, I don't know, you know, how much sand we can come up with to nourish all of these areas just from dredge spoils.
Yeah, you were lucky.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to, you know, we finally have our 10-year permit from the Army Corps that's been issued, and we've been dredging all fall. But it's tough to coordinate with the dredge and their schedule, you know, in terms of the county dredge. And then we do have some other projects where we've gone out to bid and to hire, you know, a private contractor to do some other mechanical removal in some other sites. We're going to be starting to do the Englewood Basin right now in Lewis Bay mechanically. The county dredge has now left Yarmouth. They dredged about 6,000 yards, a little over, from Bass River, the entrance, the approach and entrance. And I don't have the post-dredge survey done for Parker's yet, but probably dredged 3,000 or 4,000 from Parker's as well.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Not somebody, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the emergency certification?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Welcome. Safe flying.
Have a good vacation.
All right, we're moving back into the regular order, then we're moving on to requests for determination of applicability. The first one, Jason and Catherine Weiner, 10 Mariners Lane, proposed fence replacement and expansion tree removal of native plantings in the buffer zone to a bordering vegetative wetland. I'm going to be tabling this until, what's the next one again?
January 18th.
January 18th,
This is the Blue Rock,
There's no
Yes.
voting.
10
Mariners
Mariners
Lane.
Lane, yeah.
January 11th?
There's no voting sheet
18th.
for this one, Ellie.
January 18th,
18th.
18th.
2 weeks from today.
Ellie,
Today,
don't
the
write on
12th.
that voting sheet. Don't write on that voting sheet, Ellie. That's for a different
I'm losing a
project.
date there.
Ellie, that voting sheet's not for the project we're talking about. I didn't print one for the 10 Mariners.
Okay.
We're just going to table that, how's
Okay.
that?
All right.
Make a new
How's
one.
that?
No full.
Right, next order of business, another request for determination. Bob Perry, Cape Cod Engineering for Holly Davis, 232 Blue Rock Road, proposed floating dock reconfiguration permit under SE 83-1161, and installation of a new piling and land under the ocean and land containing shellfish. Bob?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bob Perry, Cape Cod Engineering, and I agreed to come to the meeting on behalf of Holly Davis Whitaker, the owner of 232 Blue Rock Road in South Yarmouth. Holly had embarked upon a COC exercise for a dock that was permitted in 1991, constructed at that time. And although contacted by Ms. Davis, she engaged independently with the Yarmouth Conscom and staff, and they discussions between Holly Davis and Brittany, Holly decided or was instructed, or it was concluded that she would file a request for determination to render changes to the facility as it had been built over the last 25 years or more. And it's my understanding that she took the 1991 permit plan and she marked it up. And we were requested, we're all very, very busy, so when her phone calls came in, I said, well, I'll help you get the RDA process going, and, her conclusion seemed like a reasonable solution, and so she prepared a marked-up PDF that was filed with the RDA that showed the removal of 2 pilings and 1 float from the configuration that was existing out there in this just last season, the last fall, before the dock facilities were removed for the season. The original dock was a straight fairway pier with a ramp and a perpendicular arranged float with stanchions that would hold it into place. That was one of the things they did back in the 70s and 80s. And those were they worked, but I think that was done away with, and pilings were used then instead of anchors, or instead of the stanchion anchor. My inspection out there, I did go there because I just wanted to see what I was going to be discussing with you. And the arrangement that exists there now that's on this drawing has ample water depth. It utilizes a float that still floats at low tide to get out to the location where the primary float is. Those are in blue. So it's my understanding that she engaged a marine construction company to pull the pilings and get everything out of there, but this is the configuration that they would like to go forward with as permitted through the change which is being shown to you now as an RDA, where we are working on the water surface. There is piling work, but it's to remove the pilings and then to basically keep or replace the 2 pilings that are there, that have been there. And once that change has been effected, which would have to be in the upcoming summer season, I think that's when she could come in for a COC, or if the RDA is approved prior to those things being built, since every float goes in at every dock seasonally, long after certificates of compliance are approved, that perhaps the COC process could go forward as soon as the RDA is approved. So I hope I haven't confused you with this, but it's really just taking out a float and 2 pilings and then keeping 2 floats as they've been installed in there for the last 30 years effectively. So that's my presentation for you on this one. Happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Bob. You've confused me totally.
Well, that's why I'm here to answer your questions.
Oh,
What kind of,
So what's this? This is what she wants to go to, right? Or this is what she wants to go to?
Well, they look the same to me. That the Brown drawing appears to show the final, the
Oh.
only extra float.
Okay, all right. So at some point, there were two additional pilings put in, is that correct? That weren't supposed to be, that weren't, she
There
wasn't
were never any
permitted for.
pilings associated with the facility, except for the pier. The float was to be anchored with stanchions.
Okay. So the piles that are there are all unpermitted,
Correct.
right? Okay. And when did those piles go in?
I can only speculate that those steel brackets probably failed after 10 or 12 years, and they probably were installed in the early 21st century.
I don't feel comfortable moving and manipulating a project, a peer project like this without having some sort of a stamp plan with this. If it's to go back to the original, I guess I could live with the RDA, but the original permitted, that is. But I don't like the idea of adding another float. I know it's been there, but I don't like the idea, it was never permitted. I don't like the idea of adding that, and essentially permitting 3 piles that don't have any benefit of a stamp plan. That's just my opinion. And I'll turn it over to the rest of the commission for their comments.
But I will tell you, Ed, thank you for the comments, it's our understanding that the dock that is depicted as proposed was constructed to the dimensions that it was proposed as a fixed pier. The float arrangement is different, and so that's where we're looking at variation. It appears to me that the float they're seeking is 1 float width farther seaward. I think it must be for depth of water.
But you're asking us to add another float that's 6 by 16,
That's
right?
to get to that float, right, to have the ramp come down on that float.
And that's where I have the problem. So, anyhow, I'll turn it over to the rest of the commission for any of their comments, questions.
What is this depicting here?
From here, that looks like the facility that has been there, that
All right,
is far beyond the permitted scope.
that's what I thought too. So we have a main, the larger of the 2 outboard floats. You're gonna maintain the larger of them, but what's happening to the smaller one? Is that being,
It's just an L, as shown on the plan that she prepared.
right,
This thing.
this doesn't answer my question though. What, is that one just going away?
No, there'll be an L-shaped pier for her proposal. There would be an L-shaped float arrangement.
Right, I see that.
Now, the white float she shows on there, I'm not quite sure why she changed the color on that or where it came from. I haven't seen that before.
Well, that's the additional float.
The additional
right?
float.
That's the
Okay,
additional
well,
float.
But it
yeah.
still doesn't answer my question about what happens to that one there.
Oh, it's not coming, it no longer will be in the water.
Okay. So then, given that, I agree with my chairman that I'd like to see a Robert Perry stamp plan with this project on it, please.
If I can find time, I'd be happy to talk with her about that.
Thank you.
Well, with the 3 piles, 3 piles that are there now, right?
Actually,
That were
there's
never
four-
permitted?
Yeah, there's a collection of pilings that were, whether or not they were authorized by anybody, I don't know. That, how things can go over
That's
the
another-
years. And the applicant is making an effort to bring a level of documentation to you through an RDA process that can stand in your file records that she wanted to see this reviewed. You get a stamp plan, it's not gonna change very much, but this is purely up to you.
But their stamp plan will be part of the record. and
Correct,
that's-
and-
That's critical.
That's correct.
This would, in my opinion, would need a waterways license to reflect the current or the approved configuration, which would be the next step, either through an RDA process or a notice of intent process. Would you handle it through an RDA since we're dealing with after-the-fact piles that aren't changing and floats in the water that are no different than a boat? In other words, can we keep the RDA open?
No, we can't keep the RDO open. We have to vote on it tonight. It either goes up or down.
Okay,
And my own personal opinion is I think we should give it a positive determination and require the notice. That would be that way we get a stamp plan, we get a review, we go to Waterways, we get natural heritage, if we need natural heritage. Did I see something with DMF?
Yeah, DMF
Oh, they'd
sent
be
comment.
involved. Oh, sure, yeah. Everything's seaward of high tide. Oh, I'm representing
think that
Ms.
would be
Davis's, her inroads to your organization through Brittany. At the start, we'd be talking the usual shellfish, waterways, conservation, notice of intent process that you have. But Holly actually spoke to Brittany about this process. And of course, she doesn't vote, so she can only give the understanding to the owner that this was one avenue, and the owner chose this avenue. Hence, my visit. I think I'll be seeing you again about it.
You will.
I mean, do you want to withdraw it, or do
I
you
think
want
it's
to?
appropriate that, knowing where we're going, why don't I just withdraw the RDA and
Make-
we'll go on from
Yeah,
there.
that would make more sense. I think that's better
Yep, that's fine with
force
me.
there, Bob. Okay,
Yes.
all right.
I just had one more quick comment, just for you to keep in mind, that the additional float would be expanding the footprint closer to the channel marker, and it would be within 40 feet. So that would be something to keep in mind for the notice of intent.
Well, we need to look at the depth. I mean, your rule is 3 feet of water at the end of the float. Is that still the case?
Yes, and so I'm just talking about the distance from the float to the channel, which may
Right.
have changed a bit since
We
1990.
would
100 feet.
minimize, we need to minimize that.
That is a very unusual spot.
And, I should say maximize it, what am I saying? So,
Maximum.
given the fact that we are,
Yeah, so do I. We just talked about that.
given the fact that we're in deeper water here, is it Waterways process that you would insist upon a shellfish survey, or is it conservation process?
That would probably be Waterways.
And because it's kind of an unusual location, Bob,
Very
you know,
unusual.
very, very narrow in terms of the location of the ever-changing location of the channel, I think that's something that we might consider differently in a positive way. Because that's a moving target.
As far as waivers to get farther from the channel?
It's 42 right now. I think we would consider the moving target for the location of the channel as part of the application in a
We'll be
positive way.
providing that to you.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think I heard if they go to their original configuration, that's,
If they go to the original configuration, it's like, it's gonna slide. I don't have any issues with it whatsoever, right? I mean, we don't have to,
right, I get it.
Yeah, they would still be
Original
needing,
configuration had the stanchions, and they're no longer using the stanchions, so the piles. would
Well,
be-
they could use those, they could get those fashioned if they had,
Seen them.
I think I've heard,
those are taken in and out every
Correct.
season,
they go
right?
out with the float.
But the piles aren't.
Just, but the piles aren't, so that's why I'm saying, are you planning on keeping the piles where they are?
Well, I'm going to take this meeting back to the owner and let her know where you are on it. Pipe pilings, they're used throughout Pleasant Bay. They're seasonal. But I don't know what your position is on that. That's still not, it's work in the bottom,
Yeah.
right? So jetted in. So I've got enough information. I, will explain the circumstances to the owner, and then she can make a choice. Have those stanchions refabricated and go back to what she had. I think she's trying to sell the property.
Yeah,
So
I
she
mean,
needs to,
I think that would be.
she needs to make her dock legal.
so just,
Go back to the original.
I don't have an issue with that.
if the homeowner wanted to go to the original configuration but use pilings, would you be okay with an RDA to do that? Because she would still need to be moving a single piling,
Pretty small
and it would
footprint.
be permitting the pilings instead of the original.
Yeah, I guess I would if. you
That
want-
is what my understanding of what she wanted to do was, when she originally came to me, was go to the original location with the pilings. I did not
Really?
realize she wanted to push a new float out.
Interesting,
So
okay.
that is why,
Because I got what she might have believed was what you might have agreed to, but she's totally unfamiliar with the process,
that
so.
is, that's what these RDAs
Nice
are
of you to go
for.
through it with her.
Might be a safer
If
configuration.
you feel
Yeah, I'm good. If you're gonna go back to original configuration and do the two piles, then I'm good with the RDA. But if you're gonna
Add floats, then.
add floats and go
That's
go
very-
further out, then
that's
yeah,
very
you-
helpful.
You would have to go with the notice of intent.
Okay. I'll still withdraw this RDA, because we can get one back to you if she chooses this route. So that's my request. You need to vote on that?
I don't think so.
Actually, we don't. You just have to say you withdraw and then
Hasta la vista.
just send Brittany an email tomorrow
Okay.
to that effect that you're withdrawing this one, and then we'll put it in the file and start all over. Okay, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Next order of business, another RDA for Patrick Jacobs, P. Jacobs Custom Carpentry and Remodeling for Elizabeth Sanford, 80 Eldridge Road, proposed 576 square foot addition in land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Hello, my name is Annie. I'm sitting in for Pat tonight because they are about to have a baby, hopefully any minute. So 24 hours of labor so far and no baby yet. So I'm standing in for Elizabeth Sanford, 80 Eldridge Road. There's a 576 square foot addition
Nice Mariners.
that they're proposing to get approved.
What's your last name? Connor?
Yonor.
Thank you.
This is my baby gift.
I may not have grabbed one.
Can't help you. I never got a copy.
Acres Avenue. Thought I had these on mine. Eldridge Road, that's it.
Okay, did you have anything, did you want to add anything more
No,
to
I
the?
really didn't. I mean, he said, Pat had mentioned that no trees or bushes will be removed in the process. It's almost, it's matching the existing footprint of the dwelling, the deck that's already there. They're gonna, within, the project's all within all the setbacks. There's going to be the dry wells for the gutters and downspouts. Just kind of so those are some of the things he wanted me to just to kind of point out to you guys.
Okay. All right, any questions from the board?
Oh, I don't see the dry wells on the plan. I just not,
You might not be, because he put in my notes that I was supposed to tell you all dry wells for gutters and downspouts.
you have that added to the plan?
We can. Did you talk to Pat? Like, did he?
He didn't mention them to me, but if they're going in, we can just put a condition.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
Nope.
Nope.
Brittany, any other comments?
No.
Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom have any comments, questions? Raise your hand digitally. If not, and there's no further discussion among the board, may I have a motion for a -2?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. So a positive is a good thing for you, or sorry, a negative is a good thing for you. It means that you don't have to do any further filing with
Okay,
conservation.
so I will pass along to Pat.
Yeah, just add the, and.
Add the
you can
dry wells
submit
and-
the plans to-
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, thank you.
Did it slip, is it on the back of the other one? It's probably paper clipped to the back of the other folder that got sent down.
Folder,
Nice.
last folder that went.
We got it.
Oh, got it?
Next order of business another RDA for Mantini, construction for William Smith Jr., 82 Acres Avenue, proposed 500 square foot addition and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Did I read that right?
You did.
That's almost exactly the same thing. It was throwing me off. Is there somebody on Zoom for this one?
I see his name there.
Don't see anyone.
There he is.
Eli? Go ahead and unmute yourself and just state your name for the record, and then briefly describe what you'd like to do.
You're still muted, Eli. Dave, can you unmute him? No. Oh,
No.
bummer.
Eli, you have, oh, there you go. Okay, there you got it.
How you doing?
We can hear you.
Yeah, the proposal for the addition, almost 500 square feet of the addition. I have all the plans, I'm just here to see what, if you guys have any questions.
Okay, questions from the board? No?
No.
Brittany, anything?
Just two comments about a prior project, not necessarily this one. There was an administrative review done a few years ago that required some plantings in replacement for 22 trees that they took down, and most of them have died. So I'll let the homeowners know that they are responsible for replacing those. In addition to not using the wetland area to store all their leaves, they need to be taken to the dump.
Okay.
So you want to put that on as a condition to the RDA then?
Sure.
Okay. All right, anybody?
Sounds good.
Okay, that's it, Brittany?
Yeah.
Anybody in the audience? Anybody else on Zoom who would like to comment on this? I see none. Unless there's further discussion, would somebody like to make a motion with the special condition?
I'll move it.
Okay, thank you.
That's a -2 and 3?
It's a -2? Or, yeah, -2 and 3, right?
I think so.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
next.
you.
Hmm?
Sorry, he's still up there.
Need a minute?
No, I'm good.
Sure. Okay. Next order of business, another RDA for Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering for Peggy Lyons, 30 Route 6A, proposed 180 square foot addition and 320 square foot deck within the buffer zone to a vegetated wetland. 5 trees are proposed for removal.
Good evening. My name is Taria McGrail with Coastal Engineering, actually now Ty and Bond. So this property located at 30 Route 6A in Yarmouth is currently developed with a single-family dwelling, wood decks, pool house, patio, pool area, walkway, driveway, and lawn, and then an existing on-site sewage disposal system. On this property for wetland resource areas, we have a AE elevation 12 flood zone that's located more seaward towards Mill Pond, and then we also have a coastal bank down along the waterfront. Further inland, and what you see depicted on the screen right now, in green is an isolated vegetated wetland that resides mostly on the property located to the west of the subject parcel. So on the plan before you, you see the green boundary for the edge of this isolated wetland, and then in red is the 50-foot buffer, and blue is the 100-foot buffer. Proposed scope of work for this project is for a small addition, 180 square feet to the existing dwelling. This addition to the dwelling is going to take place within the footprint of the existing deck. And then in addition to that expansion, there's also going to be a 320 square foot expansion to the deck. Overall, this results in an increase in 320 square feet of new coverage within the 50 to 100 foot buffer. All of the deck that's proposed is proposed above an area that's already developed as lawn space. So the activity that's proposed is located within already developed portions of the parcel. And as I previously mentioned, the footprint of the addition is within the footprint of existing developed deck space. On the plan, you'll also see that there's a erosion control barrier proposed just beyond the proposed work. So we'll be, taking good care to take care of the property during construction. The sediment barrier will be maintained, and activities will be focused just in the areas where the proposed addition and deck is proposed. There's going to be no increase in the bedroom count or any proposed changes to the existing on-site sewage disposal system. We don't anticipate any impacts on the existing isolated wetland. And I also wanted to point out that there's 5 very large spruce trees that are adjacent to the existing dwelling, so they are also proposed for removal.
Are those marked on the plan?
They are marked on the plan. They're in a row, and they're just to the left there on the plan of the more beige-looking deck expansion. So shaded in gray on there is the.
I got you.
You got it,
I
okay.
got you, yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know there were spruce trees when you got there. They're trimmed up 30 feet.
Yeah, they're quite tall.
Oh.
Yeah. So due to the proximity to the dwelling, the current owner feels it's time for their removal.
Okay, questions from the board?
I have one question. You referenced the isolated wetland, is that the pond there on the left?
Yes, so can see the stakes delineate, so wetlands are delineated based on hydric soils and plant material. The staking for the edge of wetland was based on our observations of hydric soils. That's why it comes out into what appears to be lawn in some cases, and you can see with the heavy rains recently that it did go beyond the border of where there is some of the vegetation along the rock wall.
Yeah, I think Brittany will have some comments about mowing right to the edge of it.
You can make those comments.
Yeah, I think you just did.
I say my comment is stop it. I mean, it's like a polo field there. You could literally do 50 feet away from that.
So the client is receptive to that comment, and we spoke with them about delineating the edge of the wetland with a short split rail fence so that the area that is currently grass can be naturalized and will naturally take its course.
Okay, and, yeah, because I'd like to see that put on the plan then, with a note to that effect. Just a revised plan. Anybody else?
Are you okay with that being immediately at the wetland edge, considering the 5 trees that are being removed?
No, how much of a buffer are you giving between the wetland edge and the
The fence?
fence? Are you gonna go right at the edge?
Well, that's one thought. Another thought, we were talking about maybe a 5-foot buffer. That would amount to almost 350 square feet in addition to. So if you look at the plan, there's a rock wall that, per the deed, bounds the property line there. This is land-corded land. So you can see, so the heavy dark is the boundary there. So if you come over towards the right, towards the east.
Right.
Yeah, so that heavy line that says 74.66 there's currently a rock wall along that line. And so that's about where, just a little bit beyond that, there's some of the vegetation that you see coming up through the pond. So we've discussed with the client allowing there's, there's a bit of lawn between that rock wall and where you see the stakes that were put out there, that area would become naturalized. So currently the area that's grassed, but it is appearing as hydric soil and was staked as such, would become naturalized. So that whole area, yeah, where you see the pond beyond the taller, would become naturalized area, and we'd put in a low split rail fence where those wood stakes are.
At 5 feet.
We could entertain 5 feet, with 5 feet beyond inland from those stakes,
Yeah.
so that we'd be providing a 5-foot buffer.
Yeah, I would say that would be the minimum that,
I still think you could give more, but that's just me.
Well, you say that, I mean, what's typical? What's the general rule of thumb? in terms
35
of-
feet is general. We have a
35.
35-foot no disturb zone, but, and since this area has been disturbed, they've been mowing within the wetland resource area. So this kind of is now becoming an enforcement hearing with the determination hearing. So it's up for the commission to decide
So
how.
having said that, are you saying it should be, first of all, the mowing should stop up to that wetland area?
Absolutely.
Secondly, there should be more than a 5-foot buffer along that edge?
I would say that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think so.
How many?
Yeah.
If I could just pop in, I did some measurements on the areas. So the area that can, be naturalized is about 750 square feet up to the green line. And then beyond that, adding another 5-foot buffer, we're looking at adding about another 350 square feet. So at that point, we'd be up at 1,000 square feet of area of lawn that would be naturalized. So that would be a great benefit to this area, to this isolated wetland.
That was what, you said 5 feet with a 5-foot?
Yeah, with the 5-foot provides another 350 feet. And the way I looked at that was just following that property line that shows the 7466. If you measure the green line coming around from about the top of the 7466 and then down to where it intersects again with the property line, that's about 70 linear feet of edge of wetland. And then if you take another 5 feet off of that, that's about, another 350 square feet of buffer strip that would be given back to nature.
Yeah, I still think you could easily do 10. I mean, I'm willing to go 10 and not file an enforcement order at this point.
And
That would be my opinion, but
I would agree that,
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
and most researchers, I think, today is showing 20 feet practically across the US, so I don't understand what your point is on 5 feet or square foot. Square foot really doesn't impact, it's the foot.
well, the standard is 50. Yeah, the standard is 50. That's what most commissions would try and aim for, but
Yeah.
we do allow 35 as our minimum no disturb, and
We're going to.
granted, this has been in existence, so I'm willing to work with them a little bit, but I think 10 is my minimum that I would like to see. 'Cause, I mean, really, there's nothing, you could literally turn around and file an enforcement order next week and ask for a full 35-foot restoration, and I don't think that's something we're looking to do. We're looking just to try and maximize, and sort of like a compromise between the applicant and us in terms of what we're looking for. So I think 10.
That's understood.
would be-
Okay, so 10 feet from the edge of wetland, split rail fence, and then allow the lawn to
And I
naturalize.
would put it as a revised plan,
Okay.
put that 10-foot with the fence, and put that area with a note in it that says no disturb.
And you're just going to allow to naturalize with no plantings for the trees lost?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're making the compromise.
Just making sure what to put in the minutes.
Now, is this something that we could do as a condition on the RDA, and we can submit it?
Yeah, that's what I fully
Okay.
intend to do. As long as you're willing to do that and your client is willing to do that, then
Yeah,
we're good.
Well, Yeah,
with
but,
the RDA.
but they're going to submit a new plan.
But they have to, yeah, you have to submit the new revised plan. That's the only other portion to that, but, so we won't be able to issue the determination until we get the
Till we get the
revised
plan.
plan.
Okay, and just so that I'm aware, do you need that within 2 weeks, just so I can communicate to the team?
When did we accept this?
Look,
Like 20 days ago?
yeah, I mean, we have 21 days to issue December 21st. So yeah, we need it in a week.
In a week, okay, thank you.
The sooner the better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then I do have to issue it.
Understood.
Not that I think you're going to turn around and appeal, but I'll tell you right now, if you do, I'm going to be filing an enforcement order. Anyhow, I think it just as quick as you can get it done,
Sure.
that would be appreciated by all, so we can get it off our plate. All right, anybody in the audience on this one? Anybody in Zoom? Any further discussion among the commission? Would somebody like to make a motion for a -3 with the conditions of receiving a revised plan showing a 10-foot buffer, no disturb zone, and marked by single split rail fence or similar?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It's my wife.
Moved that.
My son.
You and
Bishop
second.
and Frost.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure it out.
We don't have enough time for that.
All right. Moving on to our next order of business, another emergency certification. Chris Cloninger, Woods Hole Group for Great Island Homeowners Association, Great Island Road, rebuild portions of the primary coastal dune to protect public health and safety.
I put the little clicker up there. Oh, you have a new one?
This is winter.
Great Island.
This is Great Island.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Craig Fleming. I'm the general manager at Great Island. I think I met most of you over the past year, either here or on site. Before I turn it over to Chris, I just wanted to kind of give you a quick recap from some of the homeowners about what's kind of happened over the last year, as well as what we've got planned going forward. So it was just about a year ago, I think you may recall, that we came to before you deal with an enforcement issue when Bomb Cyclone Elliott had removed a section of the protective dune threatening Great Island Road and replaced the dune without notifying you. Now we come to before you with a similar emergency situation, but have taken some...
Just a minute, Craig. I don't know if I can open the PowerPoint up here. Don't they open stuff all the time during Board of Selectmen meetings?
See it on the left.
Could you open it before, like did it come through email?
No.
I think we just delivered it.
I think we just don't have my PowerPoint on here, unless, Dave,
Is that on date?
We can make a PDF of it.
that would be great.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I don't know why this
Maybe
is
while
not.
Craig's given the intro, Chris can do that.
We're up to date, so up to date in the town department.
Sure, go for it. Sorry about that. I
No
thought we were-
PDF, if you get the full thing, it's
We're just gonna take.
$300 a year.
It's fine.
It's lucky you got these highfalutin folks with their laptops traveling with their laptops.
Couldn't agree more.
To me, I'd be driving back and taking pictures and saying, "Here you go." We'll just take 2 minutes, a 2-minute break here. We get our technical
These just came
difficulties.
out
Some
today.
great pictures on my phone.
Yeah.
I have a lot of
I'm sure
them.
you did, yeah.
Hand it to us.
Can we just take it out?
There we go.
I think
You
yes.
brought the drone out there.
Yeah, for,
Did you get to go out on this one? Did you get to go out here?
last week.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
right on
So
the edge
that's
of the
pretty-
asphalt.
Pretty much, huh?
Well, yeah, but destruction is complete.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
The whole coast.
There you go, right now.
Yeah. It's quite a storm.
Oh, you will be getting more.
The one picture that amazes me in this is the height of the telephone poles that last time we were out there was only like this high out of the sand. Now they're like, what, 4 feet?
Incredible.
Craig, do we have any sense, on the beach was often pieces of asphalt that show up. Was that the original road?
It was,
I thought so.
Yeah.
From my youth.
and those are the original telephone poles, from what I
Yeah.
Yeah,
understand.
we just cut them off with a chainsaw, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think so.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Wait.
I'll just log in on.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Sorry about that.
They say you're friends with Jeffrey Epstein or something. Is there something you want to tell us? We should have done a more thorough background investigation, apparently.
Yeah.
It's gonna make me do this several factor thing.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's probably best.
Catherine got engaged over her vacation.
Yeah.
My contact.
I could do that too, yeah.
So look up my Hulu password.
I gotta stop at Natural Resources, I haven't been there in a long time.
Yeah, I was there the other day.
Now that I'm not really dealing with recreation anymore. He keeps asking me,
Ooh, look at that.
did you see the graffiti
Yeah.
at, Bagot Landing?
Okay.
All set?
Sorry, Craig.
We're back.
Okay, well, what I was getting at is that we've taken some steps over the last year to try and comply with the regulations that are required. And the first thing we did, we set up some clear procedures which follow the Massachusetts and Yarmouth regulations to deal with these situations so a violation doesn't occur again. And we reviewed those procedures with Brittany. We initiated that process the night of the December 2023 storm when it became clear that the Causeway Road was blocked. I emailed Brittany that evening, and she had granted permission to clear the road the following morning. Secondly, we've reinforced our approach to our long-term resiliency planning. Although the state issued a superseding order of conditions for our beach nourishment project, we've elected to hold off on the implementation of the project as it has become clear that everyone, Great Island and Yarmouth, is better served by a plan that looks at this complex issue more comprehensively, taking into account elements such as sea level rise, which were not addressed by the nourishment project. In November, after a thorough selection process, we hired the Woods Hole Group to perform a feasibility study to develop and thoroughly evaluate possible responses to all the issues we face regarding access to Great Island, with options tested for practicality, timeframe for implementation, ability to be permitted, and cost. The study will take about a year. Woods Hole Group has been working in Great Island since the morning of December 21st, 2023, when team members visited during a flood tide and strong southeast winds, and have been in the thick of it ever since then. They have seen the serious issues we face in a very compressed time frame. They were here most recently in December 2023 storm, and obviously are here tonight to assist us with our emergency certification request. So I think that you know Chris and his team, so I'm just going to turn it over to them, unless you have any questions for me. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone, for your time. As you saw the picture from the groundskeeper, Alan Pearson, who was on site for the event there that had significant erosion and overwash and leaving a lot of debris in the roadway. This is one heck of a way to kick off our feasibility study for the Great Island Road. And our initial thought and what you received in the letter sent on behalf of Great Island Homeowners Association was a beach nourishment project, but our logistics have changed slightly, wanting to figure out the true path forward for Great Island Road and what makes the most sense in using nature-based solutions as a possibility. Would dumping sand be the best option right now? We would really like to see over the course of the year our data come in and our research continue, so we don't see sites like that going forward. So as we look at the two sections that were compromised after the storm, similar to last year, so I am a meteorologist and climate scientist by training and the project manager for this project. When you get into these patterns, these sou'easters, a relative of the nor'easter, are becoming quite common, and we are currently in a blocking pattern with this big area of high pressure over Greenland. So a storm track like this will likely persist for the remainder of winter, which leaves these two sections very vulnerable to flooding. You can see the dune crest elevations there on the screen prior to the storm, and they were pretty much now at the road elevation as the road is tucked just behind the dune crest. So some significant damage to those two sections of dune, northeast of the S-curve and southwest of the S-curve as well. And you can see the areas about 600 feet northeast, 950 feet southwest. It's the only access point, I'm sure as many of you are aware, to the island and to the residents that do call it home for the entire year, some of which do have health problems and are aging in place. EMS, I went out with Captain Huck afterwards, after the fact, and he did express extreme concerns about being able to respond in case of an emergency. If you saw that site, they would not be able to respond to an emergency on the island in this case when you have debris and sand covering the road. Also, our concern for the environment is what happens if we have another storm and it's left untreated, those two sections where there's scarp and then it goes right up to the roadway, which you'll see in a couple of pictures shortly. But then that turns into an environmental hazard with asphalt either ending up in the marsh to the north and west or back out into the ocean, which is another big concern that we have. So with our teams at Fuss and O'Neill, we were discussing some of our strategies. And if you look at the next slide, you can actually see that scarp that I tried to measure this afternoon, anywhere from 2 to 3, even 4 feet. And it's anywhere from 3 to 6 feet from the roadway. And it will just continue to eat away. And obviously a concern with next week's storm, very similar, stronger perhaps than the storm. And if that coincides with an incoming tide, I would predict that this would probably be gone and a good section of roadway in those two areas would be gone without any mitigation efforts. So going down, this is the change that we're talking about with our civil engineering partners at Fuss and O'Neill. Instead of dumping sand and doing beach nourishment, more of a strategic approach about placing 1 cubic yard sandbags at the scarp. And that will prevent further erosion and from the road collapsing into the roadway, which is our biggest concern right now, is the structural integrity of that roadway. We've already typed the sand to make sure that that sand is the sand that is compatible to the location in question, and we would cover the sandbags with some sand fill as well that would also, again, match the sand and those beach locations. But you can see the previous dune profile and what has happened. Dotted line was pre-December 18th storm. And then going on to the next slide as we wrap up, our proposals for about 350 of those 1 cubic yard sandbags. And we want to do our due diligence and make sure that it is safe and environmentally friendly. In combining each sandbag, they'll have hooks on top to make sure that there's no structural failures and to make sure that the plastic is not damaged and ending up in the marsh or out in the ocean. So we want to make sure that that will help reduce that risk in the case of battering surf and storm surge in the next storm. Again, the sand will be compatible. We'll have Fuss and O'Neill, Woods Hole Group, overseeing this construction as it takes place. Alan Pearson will also be out on a daily basis. He's the groundskeeper of the island to make sure that there's no damage outside of storms that may occur to release any of that plastic from the sandbags that we have on site. So that is a little bit of a summary of what we have planned. It is, again, a temporary solution as we continue this feasibility study. Again, we may let nature take its course and perhaps ask for permission down the road to move the roadway. But we want to do just that. We want to look at the science and we want to look at the data before we continue to make any more significant decisions with this project. Questions?
better than I was originally led to believe you were gonna do, so.
Minor concern, plastic bags versus a jute bag or something. I recoil at the idea of introducing more plastic to the environment. And there has to be a natural solution to that. And again, I think it's what we had envisioned, frankly, as a short-term solution to this project. But the
Correct. To answer that, we did make sure that that wasn't an option in the short term, to see if we could source more of an environmentally friendly source, which I believe was several months out. Nils, I think you could maybe speak on that in a second. Do you want to?
You're sitting here.
Pass it around.
You can pass the microphone.
It is wireless.
Thank you. I'm Nils Weberg with Fuss & O'Neill, and we did look at those options. That is a concern of ours as well. There's a significant backlog for the types of materials that we would need, and the lead times on the order don't meet the time frame for the arrival of the storm. So we're doing everything that we feel is appropriate to, first of all, assure that the plastic materials, if they are disrupted by the energy of the storm, that they're all tied together. And then they could be recovered, firstly. But then, as Chris noted, Mr. Pearson will be there every day to inspect. And if there is a concern that he identifies, then our team will assure that it's addressed promptly.
Yes.
The southeast breeze is a somewhat new phenomenon for all of us to deal with. It's damaging everywhere.
So the meteorology, a bit behind that, there is more observation than peer-reviewed research, but without snowpack, that pressure gradient that drives storms and storm flow is pushed off to the west. So instead of nor'easters passing off to our north and east, they track west, and that's a prevailing southeast wind, which is the worst-case scenario for the islands and for the Cape.
Appreciate
Thank you.
the weather forecast.
Of course.
It's going to happen on Sunday.
No comment on snow totals, but we will get
something.
get probably some sloppy couple of inches all in.
Unfortunately, that's
Yes.
the case. That's all because I got snowshoes.
So it's our hope, Leslie, thank you. Leslie Fields, my colleague, mentioning the timeline. With Wednesday's storm of next week looks again like a sister storm to what happened on the 18th. It is our hope to quickly get this operation underway, to get it done prior to that storm, to, again, prevent the infrastructure from failing.
Just to be consistent also, and just to get it on the record, I still am not satisfied with the idea that dredging offshore and producing sand is an option that cannot be considered, because it just seems to me that it's a solution to a lot of this problem, you know?
Yep, you want to?
Only if it's good news.
Don't really have good news for you, sorry, but, the.
I just wanted to get on the record again.
Ocean management plan that CZM produced did look at candidate sites for offshore borrow sites. There aren't any that they identified in the Sound, Vineyard or Nantucket Sound. Doesn't mean we couldn't identify one and do that, but it's a 3 to 4 to 5 year sort of investigation type project.
Get it started.
And we are looking at that with some towns, Duxbury and Marshfield and Situate. So it would be good to have a sort of a coalition of towns that you could do that with.
You know, in the past, I don't think you're involved with it. The discussion was to bring 77,000 cubic yards of material to the beach, and the number of truck trips that would, just the implications of that beyond the damage to the roadways and things. Just there has to be a better solution, and I've always been a believer in the dredging as a solution. It happened before in the west end of the island years ago. So anyway, I'll keep my fingers for 3 or 4 years.
My very first project when I started working
So
at
you know.
Woods Hole Group in 1989 to do construction oversight for the beach nourishment here at Great Island.
Okay, anybody else?
Thank
Jack?
you.
Just out of curiosity, do you feel that there's any information out there on the quality of these plastic bags, the difference in the way they deteriorate or fall apart from wear? So that not just the bags, but you're worried about tiny particles.
Yeah, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but the intention is that these bags would remain for the duration of the winter.
Okay.
And there would be no UV or other degradation, so that's the intent.
Yeah, so hopefully long-term wear and tear is an issue, since after storm season, these would be removed.
Yeah.
About when, do you think?
Hoping, what do you think? I mean, our storm season runs really through mid
March.
to late March.
If you don't remove them by April 1st, you're going to be running up against the Natural Heritage time of year restrictions for shorebird nesting. So
Probably
you have got a
mid-March.
very narrow
window.
Yeah.
Late March, potentially, yeah.
And then another curiosity, in your future study, are you going to be looking, has really good fauna studies been done, or surveys?
Say that again?
And animals?
Wildlife.
We're, actually, that's scheduled, our resource area study.
Oh, okay.
We are doing a wetland delineation, I think the 17th, 18th to the 19th of this area. So that's in preparation for the feasibility study.
I think he was asking more about wildlife.
Yeah, we're not doing any specific wildlife studies. We will be coordinating with Natural Heritage to, identify what species are out there.
By wildlife,
Plants
you
and
include
animals?
birds?
Yep. And we'll be designing, whatever it is we design for conceptual alternatives, will be, have that sort of, in the background as something we're trying to protect.
Okay.
What's your name for the record?
I'm sorry, Leslie Fields.
Okay, yes.
This whole group.
And the removal of the bags would be by March 1st, is that what we?
We'll say March 30th.
By March 30th, yeah.
I think that might be pretty tight, March 30th with April 1st. Because then, that's fine.
No, I mean, I would prefer that they be taken out earlier, but at the same time,
So, the part of, this would have to be followed with an NOI, this emergency, this certification. And I think removing the sandbags, you would have some sand left in place that would need to be planted, would it not?
yeah, I mean, I
Need
guess
some time.
that was going to be my question, like, I mean, ultimately, going down the line, you need to do something, right? You're trying to get something to replace what was there. So, again, this is notice of intent material, but I guess my question is, why are you removing them? You've already put them in, you'll let, 90 days, 100 days of storms and regular tidal cycles and everything else, beat it into submission into and basically cement it into that scarp.
Yeah.
And then in the end of March, you're going to come along and
UV
suck it all
degradation.
out. I mean,
UV degradation is an important consideration.
and that will eventually, because you're putting out sacrificial sand on top of the bags, correct?
We are, yeah. I think
So
we-
that should take a while, and then I'm just wondering, it's like, why are we taking it out?
Is there, the materials that you looked into, were there a variety? Did you look into the court envelopes or just bag type? None of them are available for a long time, that's why.
Not available, and it takes a lot more time to anchor them properly so that
Yeah.
they aren't, dislodged and
Because
sent
these
out
would
into
just
the
be
environment. And
hooked to
so
each other to be
not something
heavy.
you can do in, 3 days with all the duck bell anchors and everything for the quar. So that's why we're going with the sandbags. I sort of agree with you, Chairman, that it might make sense to leave them in, but I also agree that we need to be able to keep them covered so we're not having any sort of UV degradation. So maybe this sounds like something we need to decide during the notice of intent process. And just so you know, if we come up with a recommendation when we come up with a recommendation for a longer-term solution, it's going to be 2.5, 3 years out before we're actually constructing that.
Right.
So we've got to have something in the meantime to protect this road, so, these residents can get to the island. So that's certainly something we'll need to think about when we file the notice of intent with sort of our long-term plan for, when we want to take the bags out.
So what we need for now, at least, is a notice of intent that shows the placement of the bags initially, and the idea that when you're gonna be removing them.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
And then I assume at some point further down the line, you'll be submitting a new notice of intent that will go back into the idea of some sort of restoration of that area, as well as whatever you're gonna decide to do with the road and everything else, which I think you should raise, but that's just my, my 2 cents. I'd rather see it I know it's more expensive, I'd rather see it
Elevated.
raised than moved, because you're just kicking the can down the line, and, you know, I mean, we've seen that happen in countless places all around Cape Cod and everything else. I mean, I worked for the National Park Service, and I remember the 1970s saying, like, oh, you know, we have this beautiful parking lot at Coast Guard Beach, and we don't have a parking lot at Coast Guard Beach anymore. And we have a beautiful parking lot up at Nauset Heights, or Nauset Light, and that's now 60 feet into the ocean. So it's, you know, I mean, I know it's again, this has nothing to do with the emergency certification, but it's something to think of it. I hope you're going to consider that seriously moving down the line, instead of kicking it down the line. Just let's do something that's more permanent. But
Yeah, that's the intent.
Chairman,
Yes.
but
If
I will, and it's like, so I just, as part of that notice then, for the emergency, then I think Brittany is right. You need to do something that's going to show, what are you going to do to at least do some sort of temporary restoration of the area, so things are not just blowing in the wind, literally. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Paul.
yeah, thank you. Ed talks about kicking the can down the road, and in one of the very last sentences of your letter, it says something about the year 2070, to possibly have something, a permanent, hopefully a permanent solution. I don't know if you have a vision of what that may be, but it seems like, so if I'm understanding, you folks are gonna have to come back many times over the periods of years to get more permission to either put more sandbags or to do something. And that's okay. I mean, you're trying to protect the area, and I understand that, and I think that you should, you know. But my other question is just kind of like a curiosity. If this is private property, is there a different approach to private property? If it was public land, if it belonged to the town of Yarmouth, would there be a difference in the approach of rectifying this problem? Would there be a different approach to what is happening on the roadway, or whatever the case may be? I'm just kind of curious. Ed did talk about, you know, a couple of parking lots down Cape that went in the ocean. They were probably, maybe they belonged to the National Seashore, I don't know. But do you have, I mean, is that something
It's a really
that I
good-
could even ask?
You know what, you certainly can ask, and it's a really good question. From a regulatory standpoint, there's a little bit more you can do with a resiliency project in terms of impacts to wetlands if it's a public project. Less you can do in that regard if it's a private project. So it's sort of held to, I guess, maybe a higher standard if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah, I just wondered if there'd be maybe a solution to the road
Yeah,
that would be expedited somehow, if it happened to
I
be.
see.
I don't know. I don't know if there's another piece of property like this anywhere around. It's such a wonderful piece of property.
it is. We have a number of clients all over, and some public, some private, and I would say that the public projects don't really get any sort of pass, or
Okay.
projects aren't necessarily expedited just because they're public projects.
Yeah.
It's still
It's the same struggle.
same struggle.
I understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Right, okay, thank you.
There is just as a fun topic, there is a new set of regulations that they put out, draft regulations that Mass DEP has that help to facilitate climate change and resiliency building projects. It just came out about a week ago, and we're all excited to comment on them and, help further everyone's goals of making
Including
the area more resilient.
Sometimes I
elevating the
think that-
roadways in there.
But, Mother Nature's just trying to make the end of that island, and
Yeah.
that's the end of it. I don't know.
It will be. It will be at some
guess,
point,
you
I'm
know.
sure.
Unless they solve the problem by 2070, then we're all set, right?
That's a bridge. They'll have a bridge set.
It'll only be 120 at that time, so we'll see.
Sitting right there.
All right, anybody else? All right, would somebody like to make a motion to?
Sorry, I just have one more question. I know everything changed a little bit. Are we still just up to 3,000 cubic yards of sand, or has that changed since the original?
That's changing since the original, yeah. So we're opting for less sand.
Far less.
Yeah, a lot less
far
sand.
less, yeah.
Okay, so we're not including the sand in the sandbags then?
Well, the
Or it's
sandbags are that's 350 cubic yards,
Right,
basically.
exactly,
And then however much,
To cover.
yeah, I mean, what kind of,
So it'll be
what are
much
you
less.
estimating for coverage or the sacrificial sand?
So we haven't really calculated that yet. So if you, unless, Nils, do you have,
No, I would estimate 3 times.
yeah,
So
three
it might
times,
be up to 1,000.
yeah.
About 1,000 cubic.
That's a rough number. I mean, we'll get a number.
And hashed out in the NOI, I'm just curious, because I think it's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
That's all, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be significantly less than what you
Yeah.
were originally proposing. I guess that's my, that's the only thing I find great about this whole thing, but anyhow. If there's no further discussion, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the emergency certification?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep, he beat you.
Didn't hear it.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
I did.
We'll be seeing them regularly, I think. from this point on.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Make your
Thank you.
appointments well in advance.
Bye, Craig.
Don't see him.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna hold you to the forecast.
You can guarantee probably an inch or two of slop.
Flop. Thank
As-
you.
As long as it melts away by Monday morning, that's all I care about. Or at least I can drive through it. All right, next order of business is request to amend an order of conditions for SE 83-2252, Ron Cadillac for Stephen and Christine Arden, 65 Winter Street, proposed construction of a 3-bedroom dwelling with 2-car garage with the buffer zone to a bordering vegetative wetland, amended to propose a swimming pool. I don't see any representative here, so I will table this to January 18th as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, hold on for just a second. Well, actually, go ahead. Well, we bring it up at, what do you call it? Other business.
Okay. It has to do with a specific.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just, so right now, just procedurally, I'm going to table this to 1/18/24. And that will bring us to approval of meeting minutes for December 21st, 2023. Does somebody like to read, or has somebody read the minutes?
No, I did not send them out.
Huh?
I didn't send them out.
Oh, you didn't send them out, so apparently nobody read them then, right? So we won't be worrying about that for now. And now we arrive at other business not reasonably anticipated, and I believe the commissioner from Yarmouthport would like to make a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask that that Brittany issue a enforcement order for this project on Winter Street. When we visited the project, we identified some very significant violations, structures on the project that were not part of the original application. The enforcement order, I would ask that the concrete structure be removed. There is significant amount of fill added to the property, so I think this is a significant violation that we need to remedy.
Okay, anybody have any other comments on that?
Procedurally, you do that without somebody being here?
Well, so what we'll do is I'll ask Brittany to go ahead and craft an enforcement order for this, and then what I'll do is we'll sign it next time around then, okay? But just formulate the enforcement order, call the applicant or the homeowner to the next meeting, and then we'll go through with a formal enforcement hearing.
Go through all those pictures. I never got to that one.
Sure, so I'm not sure why they did it this way, but they're going for an amended order for work they have done, and also from proposing a pool, which is not in yet. But on site, they have installed some additional retaining walls made of concrete at the 35-foot buffer to the wetland at its immediate edge. I'm standing on a 4-foot wall there. There's the small wall. It's about 2 feet. This wall was permitted, but not in this dimension. It was supposed to end right here at this end of this concrete bit, and they added this whole rock wall, basically terracing the area. There's stone dust down here to the point where it's not a natural soil down there anymore.
So is the silt fence the
silt fence is at the 35-foot buffer.
That's the 35?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's like 3 feet away are these unpermitted walls, and then this another taller wall at the top. The area has been graded more heavily than was permitted, about 2 to 3 additional feet, depending on where you're standing. And there was, on the original plans, there was a swale on the plans, and it did say to be vegetated from 6 feet from the property line with ground covers and native grasses, and they have put stone all in that swaled area and some non-native plantings.
Okay, so clearly there's more than enough evidence to move forward with the enforcement order.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
But you'll just make sure you make that same presentation at the enforcement hearing.
At the next one, yeah.
All right.
I'm sure they will still want their pool, but I would anticipate them having to get through this enforcement issues prior to the pool request.
Brittany, could you check, I don't know exactly how you do this, but if you go back into the records, because I remember this when they applied for it, and it seems to me there was some consideration for the amount of fill that would be brought into this property. And, I'm no expert, but it seemed like a lot of fill was brought in this pool area or the proposed pool area that may or may not be in compliance with the original plan.
Where's flood zone?
Yeah. And also,
many
you
feet.
had pointed out that,
It's as many feet below, or above, I should say.
you had pointed out there were some invasives planted along the
Yeah.
way that probably maybe should be removed at some point in time.
Yes, I would put that in the enforcement order as well, that these ornamental grasses are on the potentially invasive plant list in Massachusetts and should not be,
It's about 5 feet.
Mention all the mulch.
not to mention all the mulch. But yes, I looked at the other plan, so we did approve some regrading up to that original wall that was there. So it was going from 13 to 16, so about 3 feet at its highest. And this low area was at 12.7. And what they're proposing here, there's not that many grading lines. But they brought the 16 out much further, and that wall is at 14 instead of 13. So it's a foot over there, and they've also changed some of the grading up here. So I don't know how, in cubic yards, how much additional it is, but it is additional,
Bunch.
a bunch.
Thank you.
All right, well, we have our marching orders. Anybody else with any other unanticipated business? If not, would somebody, Brittany, anything else, or?
Nope, I'm all set.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I will.
Thank you, Jack. Is there a second?
Second.
Pat?
I'm giving it to Pat.
It is by the,
Hard to get in on these.
All those in favor?
talkers.
All confused.
You have that one.
Just one?
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
This one?
We stand adjourned at 6:24.
Don't mind.